Hello, there is Impossible Creations and its introduction tutorial for the Build Planner. Build Planner is a new feature which allows you to generate custom layouts, use helpful parameters and features to customize shapes you want to generate. It also introduces the node graph, which you can use to create some more complex stuff with it, without need to code. Build Planner is in a very early stage, and the whole PGG package will focus now on developing it. To start working with Build Planner, let's go to Impossible Creations and Build Planner window. Let's dock it. The workflow is very similar to the Field Designer window. Let's create new Build Planner preset, and I will call it Tutorial Overview. To generate something we need a Field Planner, so let's add first one. I will call it Room. Click on some of these icons to open the planner window and let's dock it on the right. With Field Initial Shape you can define starting grid on which we will work. So click on Next Preview, it will display it on a scene. And you can change the parameters to adjust it to your needs, like make it longer. And let's say you want to generate already something on this shape of the grid, so let's go to the scene. And we need object with Build Planner Executor component on it. This component allows to work with the Build Planner preset, customizing its variables and parameters. So let's select the tutorial overview, select some field setup to generate something. Generate preview to see, yeah. And now when you hit generate objects, then field setup is running its rules on this grid. And the Build Planner Executor is basically generating a grid painter, so after generating the level you can still continue designing it. It's up to you. You can also do some debugging with the grid painter, so it's nice to have it. Each of the field planner of the Build Planner preset can be modified if you allow for it, so that gives a lot of customization possibilities. Alright, let's go back to the Build Planner and let's create something more complex. We will generate some corridors, so let's select some of the initial shape which will generate something like this. And there is prepared some algorithm for random tunnels. And it gives a result like this. This will be nice for the example I want to show you. So let's rename it as corridor and we will add another field planner which will be rooms. So we want to have some random size rectangles here and align it to the corridor. So with a random size rectangle we will get a bit different shape for different seeds. Now let's make use of node graph. Node graph allows you to do some logics, do some operations with a grid like changing position, rotation, generating some path, joining cells. But here we will use some node which is called type placement, which is doing some calculations to align some field to another. Align to port is index of field to which we want to align this room field. Corridor is 0 index. So now room aligns to it. If you need some more information about a node, you can enter on its name to display tooltip or hit right mouse button and show information. Now let's say we want to have multiple rooms, so we can change instances count. And now we have few rooms without need of creating multiple field planners for different rooms. So it's nice to have this instances feature. So let's again go to the scene and create Build Planner Executor. Let's select our tutorial overview. Let's select field setups. Let's hit generate objects. And you see it works. Each of the field planner is separated grid painter. Now if we in the inspector window we switch to the rooms here. We can do many customization adjustments for the size of each room, but let's skip it for this tutorial. We don't see here control for the instances count, so let's go to the field planner and let's hit expose instance count. Now we can see it and we can change the count of the rooms and it works. We can also easily expose some variables for the customization. So let's say we want to control this tight placement parameters with some variable from the build planner executor component. To do this, we add some variable in the field planner. Let's name it my variable. Let it be from 0 to 1. Now on the grid, let's use get field variable node. Connect it with the ports we want to use it on. Let's check on the preview if it works. And now we can control it in a build planner executor component. Now let's say we want to generate some room in a controlled position on the scene. So let's add new field planner. Let's call it custom room. And by default it's created in the 0 position. So let's use planner graph to control field position. Let's use set field position node, and we can write here some custom value. Oh, actually let's refresh the rotation of the scene view. Set fixed seed, so layout will not go crazy with each refresh. To control room position we need vector tree value, which we will be able to modify. So let's add variable for it. And if we enable these two toggles, we will be able to control this position value with some transform on the scene, which can be very helpful in many cases. Let's name this variable room position. Let's get field variable. Let's connect it. It seems to work with a default value. Go back to build planner executor on the scene. Select some field setup for the custom room. Generate preview. Select custom room, and thanks for the toggles we can control this position like that with a handle, and it works. But as mentioned, let's control this position with some transform on a scene. And let's move it here. Okay, and you see it works. Let's move it again somewhere here. Yeah. So it can help you a lot if you do some custom generating for the level layout, but you don't want to dive into the generator code. Now let's generate some path towards the corridor from this custom room. And to do this we will use pathFindGenerate node. And we search from self towards corridor. And we want to collide with rooms, but not just with first instance, but with all instances. So let's collect them and use it here. So path will avoid collision with these rooms. And pathFindGenerate node will generate shape, which we want to join with our custom room, and it works. If you experience some offset from the custom room towards the corridor, and that's because the field position is set in fractional position values, and to force setting position of field in a rounded position, you can toggle round to scale. And now it's aligned. But yeah, now let's say we want to generate a doorway from the path towards the corridor. And to do this we need cells or cells position, and expanding the pathFindGenerate node shows some extra ports which will help us finding these cells. And we already have some pathFindContact cell, so we will use addCell instruction node with this cell, and this small rectangle informs us that there is some instruction added to this cell. Okay, now let's also add cell on the side of the path. So here we have end path cell position. Then we just gather the cell from our field in this position, and we add instruction to it. And it seems these are cells we wanted to find. But for doorways we also need the direction guides, and there is barely visible arrow identifying the current rotation for the instruction. And let's just basically use some node which calculates direction from one cell to another. So we calculate direction from this cell to this cell, and it's correct, but again it's barely visible. But let's add also direction for the corridor. but it needs to be inversed to point in a counter direction. Let's enable use direction. And yeah, now you see the instruction rotations are assigned correctly. Now the cell instruction will use the field setup instructions with index 0, like the ID value in the add cell instruction nodes. Let's say we want to use this ID value with some more control. To do this, let's add some variable. Let's call it doorway command. Let's select it and use integer mode, and let's toggle this switch. And thanks to that, in the build planner executor component, we will see selector menu for the instructions of the field setup. Now let's apply this value to the node. And now we want to apply instruction of the corridor, so different field planner. So we need to take in mind that it can be different field setup, and command for the door can have different index in the field setup. So let's also create doorway command for the corridor. And just for later debug, let's set here for value. You will see it in a while. Switch to custom room. Get field planner variable, and let's actually connect cell port here, since this cell port contains information about owner of this cell, so in this case it's corridor. And display name of the variable of our field planner is not yet implemented, so here we see just index of the variable. And you see here 4, so default value we set it for the corridor, so it's working correctly. Now in the build planner executor inspector we can use the doorway commands. As you can see, it makes working with this component very responsive. And we see here these commands, and yeah, doorways are generated, so everything works as intended. And yeah, that's it for this tutorial. The build planner is a bit complex thing, but it's a very early version, which will be developed to make it working with it a bit easier. It still lacks a lot of features, but they will come with a time to make you be able to generate totally customized layouts. Alright, so that's the end for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful for you. Subscribe, like to see more. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.